Section 63 of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 2. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Xueqin in Singapore. The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 2, by Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bancroft Jolly. Chapter 56, Part 2. The matrons listened to her explanations, and finding that they would be removed from their control of the accountancy, that they would not be compelled to go and settle accounts with Lady Feng, and that all that they would be called upon to do every year would be to supply a few more dials, were each and all delighted to an exceptional degree, so much so that every one of them exclaimed in a chorus that they were quite prepared to agree to the terms. "It is better," they said, "than to be obliged to go out and be squeezed by them, and to have to fork out our own money as well." Those two not entrusted with the care of any portion of land were also highly elated, when they heard that at the close of each year they would, though they had no valid claim, come in for some share of hard cash. "They'll have to hear the trouble," they however argued, "to keep things in order, so it's only right that they should be left with a few cash to meet their various wants with, and how could we very well gobble our 3 meals without doing a stroke of work?" "Worthy dames," Baochai smiled, "you mustn't decline. These duties are within your province, and you should fulfill them. All you need to do is to exert yourselves a bit by day and night, and not to be so remiss and careless as to suffer any of the servants to drink and gamble. That's all. Otherwise, I myself must have nothing to do with the control. But you yourselves know well enough that it's my aunt who appealed to me with her own lips 3 and 5 times to do it as a favour to her. Your eldest sister-in-law," she represented, "has at present no leisure, and the other girls are young. And then she asked me to look after things. So if I now don't accede, it's as clear as day that I shall be the cause of much worry to my aunt. Our Lady Feng herself is seriously ill, and our domestic affairs can't hang fire. I'm really with nothing to do, so were even a mere neighbour to solicit my help, I would also feel bound to lend her a hand in her pressure of work. How much more, therefore, when it's my own aunt who invokes my aid? Setting aside the way I'm execrated by one and all, how would I ever be able to stare my aunt in the face, if, while I gave my sole mind to winning fame and fishing for praise, anyone got so intoxicated and lost so much in gambling as to stir up trouble? At such a juncture, remorse on your part will be too late. Even the old reputation you have ever enjoyed will entirely be lost and gone. Those young ladies and girls and this vast garden are alike placed under your supervision, purely and simply because one takes into account that you have been nurses to 3 or 4 generations, and that you have most scrupulously observed the rules of etiquette and propriety. It's but fair that you should try, with one mind, and show some little regard for what's right and proper. But if you contrariwise behave with such laxity as to let people gratify their wishes by guzzling and gambling, and my aunt comes to hear of these nice doings, a little scolding from her will be of little consequence. But if the various women who attend to the household get scent of the state of affairs, they will haul you over the coals without even so much as breathing one single word beforehand to my aunt. And venerable people though you are, you will then, instead of tendering advice to young people, be called to account by them. As housekeepers, they exercise, it's true, authority over you, but why shouldn't you yourselves observe a certain amount of decorum? And if you do so, will they have any occasion to bully you? The reason why I've now bethought myself on this special boon for you is that you should unanimously strain every nerve to diligently attend to the garden, in order that the powers that be may, at the sight of your unrelenting care and zeal, have no cause to give way to solicitude. And won't they inwardly look up to you with regard? Neither will you render of no effect the various benefits devised for them. But go now, and minutely ponder over all my advice." All the women received her words with gratification. "What you say is quite right," they replied. "From this time forth, you, miss, and you, our lady, can well compose your minds. With the interest both of you feel on our behalf, may heaven and earth not spare us, if we do not display a full amount of gratitude for all your kindness." These assurances were still being uttered when they saw Lin Zhixiao's wife walk in. "The family of the Zhen mansion of Jiangnan," she explained, "arrived in the capital yesterday. Today they are going into the place to offer their congratulations, but they've now sent messengers ahead to come and bring presents and pay their respects." While she spoke, she produced the list of presents and handed it up. Tantrum took it over from her. "They consist," she said, perusing it, "of 12 rows of brocades and satins embroidered with dragons, such as are for imperial use, 12 rows of satins of various colours, of the kind worn by the emperor, 12 rows of every sort of imperial gauze, 12 rows of palace silk of the quality used by His Majesty, and 20 rows of satins, gauzes, silk and thin silks of different colours, generally worn by officials." After glancing over the list, Li Wan and Tantrum suggested that a first-class tip should be given to the messengers who brought them, after which they went on to direct a servant to convey the tidings to Dowager Lady Jia. Old Lady Jia gave orders to call Li Wan, Tantrum, Baochai, and the other girls. On their arrival, the presents were passed under review, and this over, Li Wan put them aside. "You must wait," he said to the servants of the inner storeroom, "until Madame Wang comes back and sees them. You can then lock them up." "This Zhen family, too," old Lady Jia thereupon added, "isn't like any other family. The highest tips should, therefore, be conferred upon the men, but as in a twinkle they may also send some of their womenkind to come and take their obeisance. Silks should be got ready in anticipation." Scarcely was this remark concluded before a domestic actually announced that 4 ladies of the Zhen mansion had come to pay their respects. Upon hearing this, Dowager Lady Jia hastily directed that they should be introduced into her presence. The 4 women ranged from 40 years and over. Their clothing and headgear were not, in any material degree, different from those of mistresses. As soon as they presented their compliments and inquired about their healths, old Lady Jia desired that 4 footstools should be moved forward. But though the 4 women thanked her for bidding them sit down, they only occupied the stools after Baochai had seated herself. "When did you enter this capital?" old Lady Jia inquired. The 4 women jumped to their feet with alacrity. "We entered the capital yesterday," they answered. "Our lady has taken our young lady today into the palace to pay their homage. That's why she bade us come and give you their compliments and see how the young ladies are getting on." "You hadn't paid a visit to the capital for ever so many years," Dowager Lady Jia smilingly observed, "and here you appear now, quite unexpectedly." The 4 women simultaneously smiled again. "Quite so," they said. "We received this year imperial orders summoning us to the capital." "Has the whole family come?" old Lady Jia asked. "Our old mistress, our young master, the 2 young ladies and the other ladies haven't come up," the 4 women explained. "Only our lady has come, together with Miss Tertia." "Is she engaged to anyone?" old Lady Jia asked. "Not yet," rejoined the quartet. "The 2 families, that of your senior married lady and that of your Lady Secunda, are both on most intimate terms with ours," Dowager Lady Jia smilingly added. "Yes, they are," replied the 4 women with a smile. The letters received each year from our young ladies assure us that they are entirely dependent upon the kindness bestowed upon them in your worthy mansion for their well-being."
"What kindness?"
old Lady Jia exclaimed laughingly.
"These two families are really friends of long standing. In addition to this, they are old relatives. So what we do is our simple bounden duty. What's more in favour of your two young ladies is that they're not full of their own importance. That's how it is that we've come to be on such close terms."
The four women smiled. "This is mainly due to your venerable ladyship's excessive humility," they answered.
"Is that young gentleman of yours too with your old mistress?"
old Lady Jia went on to inquire. "Yes, he has also come with our old mistress," the four women retorted.
"How old is he?"
old Lady Jia then asked.
"Does he go to school?"
she afterwards inquired. "He is 13 this year," the four women said by way of response, "but all through those good looks of his, our old mistress cherishes him so fondly that from his youth up he has been wayward to the extreme, and that he now daily plays the truant. But our master and mistress as well don't keep any great check over him."
"Yet he can't resemble that young fellow of ours,"
old Lady Jia laughed.
"What's the name of your young gentleman?"
"As our old mistress treats him just like a real precious gem," the quartet explained, "and as his complexion is naturally so white, her ladyship calls him Baoyu."
"Here's another one with the name of Baoyu,"
old Lady Jia laughingly said to Li Wan. Li Wan and her companions hastily made a courtesy. "There have been, from old times to the present," they smiled, "very many among contemporaries and persons of different generations as well, who have borne duplicate names." The four women also smiled. "After the selection of this infant name," they proceeded, "we all, both high and low, began to give way to surmises. As we could not make out in what relatives or friends' family there was a lad also called by the same name, but as we hadn't come to the capital for 10 years or so, we couldn't remember."
"That young fellow is my grandson,"
Dowager Lady Jia remarked.
"Hello, someone come here."
The married women and maids assented and approached several steps.
"Go into the garden,"
old Lady Jia smilingly said,
"and call our Baoyu here, so that these four housekeeping dames should see how he compares with their own Baoyu."
The married women, upon hearing her orders, promptly went off. After a while, they entered the room pressing round Baoyu. The moment the four dames caught sight of him, they speedily rose to their feet. "He has given us such a start," they exclaimed smilingly. "Had we not come into your worthy mansion, and perchance met him elsewhere, we would have taken him for our own Baoyu, and followed him as far as the capital." While speaking, they came forward and took hold of his hands and assailed him with questions. Baoyu, however, also put on a smile and inquired after their healths.
"How do his looks compare with those of your young gentleman?"
Dowager Lady Jia asked as she smiled. The way the four dames ejaculated just now, Li Wan and her companions explained, was sufficient to show how much they resemble in looks.
"How could there ever be such a coincidence?"
Old Lady Jia laughed.
"Yet the children of wealthy families are so delicately nurtured that unless their faces are so deformed as to make them downright ugly, they are all equally handsome, as far as general appearances go. So there's nothing strange in this."
"As we gaze at his features," the quartet added, with smiling faces, "we find him the very image of him, and from what we gather from our venerable ladyship, he is also like him in waywardness. But, as far as we can judge, this young gentleman's disposition is ever so much better than that of ours."
What makes you think so?
Old Lady Jia precipitately inquired. We saw it as soon as we took hold of the young gentleman's hand, the poor woman laughingly rejoined, and when he spoke to us. Had it been that fellow of ours, he would have simply called us fools. Not to speak of taking his hand in ours, why, we daren't even slightly move any of his things. That's why those who wait on him are invariably young girls. Before the four dames had time to conclude what they had to say, Li Wan and the rest found it so hard to check themselves that with one voice they burst into loud laughter. Old Lady Jia also laughed.
Let's also send someone now, she said, to have a look at Xue Baoyu. When his hand is taken, he too is sure to make an effort to put up with it. But don't you know that children of families such as yours and mine are bound, notwithstanding their numerous perverse and strange defects, to return the orthodox civilities when they come across any strangers? But should they not return the proper civilities, they should, by no manner of means, be suffered to behave with such perverseness. It's the way that grown-up people dote on them that makes them what they are, and as they can, first and foremost, boast of bewitching good looks, and they comfort themselves. Secondly, towards visitors with all propriety, in fact, with less faulty deportment than their very seniors, they manage to win the love and admiration of such as only get a glimpse of them. Hence it is that they've secretly indulged to a certain degree. But if they don't show the least regard to anyone inside or outside, and so reflect no credit upon their parents, they deserve, with all their handsome looks, to be flogged to death. These sentiments evoked a smile from the four dames. Your words, venerable lady, they exclaimed, are quite correct. But though our Baoyu be wilful and strange in his ways, yet whenever he meets any visitors, he behaves with courteousness and good manners, so much so that he is more pleasing to watch than even grown-up persons. There is no one, therefore, who sees him without falling in love with him. But you'll say, why is he then beaten? You really aren't aware that at home he has no regard either for precept or for heaven, that he comes out with things that never suggest themselves to the imagination of grown-up people, and that he does everything that takes one by surprise. The result is that his father and mother are driven to their wits' ends. But wilfulness is natural to young children. Reckless expenditure is a common characteristic of young men. Antipathy to school is a common feeling with young people. Yet there are ways and means to bring him round. The worst with him is that his disposition is so crotchety and whimsical. Can this ever do? This reply was barely ended when a servant informed them that their mistress had returned. Madame Wang entered the room and saluted the women. The four dames paid their obeisance to her, but they had just sufficient time to pass a few general observations when Dowager Lady Jia bade them go and rest. Madame Wang then handed the tea in person and withdrew from the apartment. But when the four dames got up to say good-bye, old Lady Jia adjourned to Madame Wang's quarters. After a chat with her on domestic affairs, she, however, told the women to go back, so let us put them by without any further allusion to them. During this while, old Lady Jia's spirits waxed so high that she told everyone and anyone she came across that there was another Baoyu, and that he was, in every respect, the very image of her grandson. But as each and all bore in mind that there were many inmates among the large households of those officials with official ancestors, called by the same names, that it was an ordinary occurrence for a grandmother to be passionately fond of a grandson, and that there was nothing out of the way about it, they treated the matter as of no significance. Baoyu alone, however, was such a hare-brained simpleton that he conjectured that the statements made by the four dames had been intended to flatter his grandmother Jia.
but consequently he betook himself into the garden to see how Shi Xiangyun was getting on. "Compose your mind now," Shi Xiangyun then said to him, "and go on with your larks. Once you were as lonely as a single fibre which can't be woven into thread, and like a single bamboo which can't form a groove. But now you've found your pair. When you exasperate your parents and they give you beans, you'll be able to bolt to Nanjing in quest of the other Baoyu."
"What utter rubbish!" Baoyu exclaimed. "Do you too believe that there's another Baoyu?"
"How is it," Xiangyun asked, "that there was someone in the Li estate called Lin Xiangru, and that during the Han dynasty there lived again another person whose name was Sima Xiangru?"
"This matter of names is all well enough," Baoyu rejoined with a smile, "but as it happens, its very appearance is the counterpart of mine. Such a thing could never be."
"How is it," Xiangyun inquired, "that when the Kuang people saw Confucius, they fancied it was Yang Huo?"
"Confucius and Yang Huo," Baoyu smilingly argued, "may have been alike in looks, but they don't have the same names. Lin and Sima were again, notwithstanding their identical names, nothing like each other in appearances. But can it ever be possible that he and I should resemble each other in both respects?"
Xiangyun was at a loss what reply to make to his arguments. "You may," she consequently remarked, smiling, "propound any rubbish you like. I'm not in the humour to enter into any discussion with you. Whether there be one or not is quite immaterial to me. It doesn't concern me at all." Saying this, she lay herself down. Baoyu, however, began again to exercise his mind with further surmises.
"If I say," he cogitated, "that there can't be one, there seems from all appearances to be one. And if I say that there is one, I haven't, on the other hand, seen him with my own eyes."
Sad and dejected, he returned therefore to his quarters, and reclining on his couch, he silently communed with his own thoughts until he unconsciously became drowsy and fell fast asleep. Finding himself in his dream in some garden or other, Baoyu was seized with astonishment. "Besides our own garden of broad vista," he reflected, "is there another such garden?" But while indulging in these speculations, several girls, all of whom were waiting maids, suddenly made their appearance from the opposite direction. Baoyu was again filled with surprise. "Besides Yuanyang, Xiren, and Ping'er," he pondered, "are there verily such maidens as these?" "Baoyu," he heard that company of maids observe, with faces beaming with smiles, "how is it you find yourself in here?" Baoyu laboured under the impression that they were addressing him. With hasty step, he consequently drew near them, and returned their smiles. "I got here," he answered, quite listlessly. "What old family's friend's garden is this, I wonder? But, sisters, pray, take me for a stroll." The maids smiled with one consent. "Really," they exclaimed, "this isn't our Baoyu. But his looks, too, are spruce and nice, and he is as precocious, too, with his tongue." Baoyu caught their remarks. "Sisters," he eagerly cried, "is there actually a second Baoyu in here?" "As for the two characters Baoyu," the maids speedily explained, "everyone in our house has received our old mistress and our mistress' injunctions to use them as a spell to protract his life for many years and remove misfortune from his path, and when we call him by that name, he simply goes into ecstasies at the very mention of it. But you, young brats, from what distant part of the world do you hail, that you've recklessly been also dubbed by the same name? But beware lest we pound that frowsy flesh of yours into mincemeat." "Let's be off at once," urged another maid, as she smiled. "Don't let our Baoyu see us here, and say again that by hobnobbing with this stinking young fellow we've been contaminated by all his pollution." With these words on her lips, they straightway walked off. Pao Yu fell into a brown study. "There's never been," he mused, "anyone to treat me with such disdain before. But what is it, in fact, that induces them to behave towards me in this manner? May it not be true that there lives another human being, the very image of myself?" While lost in reverie, he advanced with heedless step until he reached a courtyard. Pao Yu was struck with wonder. "Is there actually," he cried, "beside the Yihong court, another court like it?" Spontaneously then, ascending the steps, he entered an apartment, in which he discerned someone reclining on a couch. On the off side sat several girls busy at needlework, now laughing joyfully, now practicing their jokes, when he overheard the young person on the couch heave a sigh. "Pao Yu," smilingly inquired a maid, "what, aren't you asleep? What are you once more sighing for? I presume it's because your sister is ill that you abandon yourself again to idle fears and immoderate anguish." These words fell on Pao Yu's ears and took him quite aback. "I've heard grandmother say," he overheard the young person on the couch observe, "that there lives at Chang'an, the capital, another Pao Yu, endowed with the same disposition as myself. I never believed what she told me, but I just had a dream, and in this dream I found myself in the garden of the metropolis, where I came across several maidens, all of whom called me a stinking young brat, and would have nothing whatever to do with me. But after much difficulty, I succeeded in penetrating into his room. He happened to be fast asleep. There he lay like a mere bag of bones. His real faculties had flown somewhere or other, whither it was hard for me to say." Hearing this, "I've come here," Pao Yu said with alacrity, "in search of Pao Yu, and are you indeed that Pao Yu?" The young man on the couch jumped down with all haste and enfolded him in his arms. "Are you verily Pao Yu?" he laughingly asked. "This isn't by any means such stuff as dreams are made of." "How can you call this a dream?" Pao Yu rejoined. "It's reality, yea, nothing but reality." But scarcely was his rejoinder over than he heard someone come and say, "Our master, your father, wishes to see you, Pao Yu." The two lads started with fear. One Pao Yu rushed off with all dispatch. The other promptly began to shout, "Pao Yu, come back at once. Pao Yu, be quick and return." Xu Ren, who stood by Pao Yu, heard him call out his own name in his dreams, and immediately gave him a push and woke him up. "Where is Pao Yu gone to?" she laughed. Although Pao Yu was, by this time, aroused from sleep, his senses were as yet dull, so pointing towards the door, "He's just gone out," he replied. "He's not far off." Xu Ren laughed. "You're under the delusion of a dream," she said. "Rub your eyes and look carefully. It's your reflection in the mirror." Pao Yu cast a glance in front of him, and actually caught sight of the large inlaid mirror facing him quite opposite, so he himself burst out laughing. But presently a maid handed him a rince-bouche and tea and salt, and he washed his mouth. "Little wonder is it," Xue ventured, "if our old mistress had repeatedly enjoined that it isn't good to have too many mirrors about in young people's rooms, for as the spirit of young persons is not fully developed, there is every fear, with mirrors casting their reflections all over the place, of their having wild dreams in their sleep. And is a bed now placed before that huge mirror there? When the covers of the mirrors are let down, no harm can befall, but as the season advances and the weather gets hot, one feels so languid and tired that is one likely to think of dropping them? Just as it happened a little time back, it slipped entirely from your memory. Of course, when he first got into bed, he must have played with his face toward the glass, but upon shortly closing his eyes, he must naturally have fallen into such confused dreams that they thoroughly upset his rest. Otherwise, how is it possible and he should have started shouting his own name. Would it not be as well if the bed were moved inside tomorrow? That's the proper place for it. Hardly had she, however, done before they perceived a servant sent by Madame Wang to call Baoyu. But what she wanted to tell him is not yet known. So, reader, listen to the circumstances recorded in the subsequent chapter. End of section 63. Recording by Xueqin in Singapore. End of The Dream of the Red Chamber, Book 2 by Xueqin. Translated by Henry Bancroft Jolly. Chapter 56.